Hello everyone, welcome to the newest episode of This is China. Today I'm going to be talking about competition. Competition is not a fun subject to talk about, it's not a nice subject to talk about, but is absolutely something that you need to know about China before you come here because it shapes virtually every aspect of life. So let's talk about it. So what is it about competition that merits an entire video and probably quite a long one at that? Well, China has a lot of problems with competition because of many different factors, and there are many situations that arise in China that only arise in China because of these certain factors. And probably the biggest single factor of this is going to be the population. The population shapes every aspect of life in China because you've got 1.4 billion people who are competing for a limited amount of jobs, a limited amount of universities, a limited amount of services, and etc., etc. So a lot of problems arise because of that. Let me give you a few examples about education. Since I came to China in 2011, I've always been involved in the education system here. I was first a student and now I'm a teacher. And education here is very different from a lot of places throughout the world because of the population. And it is the competition that shapes these differences, that creates these differences. Let me give you an example of the Chinese Gaokao. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Gaokao is the Chinese college entrance examination. It's the SAT, ACT for you Americans kind of thing. It is the exam that all students need to take if they want to go to college. Now, something about China is that there are so many students, but there are only a few universities. There are just not very many universities here in China. There are a lot, sure, but there aren't enough, and that causes some problems. Now, just to give you an example of the students, there are more students in primary school in China than there are primary school students, middle school students, and high school students in the USA. More than all of them combined, there are more primary school students in China. And then if you add in middle school students, you add in high school students, and then you add in the university students themselves, the undergrad, the graduate students, and then, those numbers add up to a ton of people. And the thing is, the Chinese universities, they only have a finite amount of spots that they can fill every year. So there are millions, literally millions of students every year that cannot go to college no matter how well they do on their Gaokao. So what happens because of that? They study night and day for years. In high school in China, high school is 3 years long, and they spend basically those 3 years, all 3 years, especially the last two, and all that they do, all that they teach is how to take the Gaokao, pretty much. They teach students how to do well on the Gaokao. They give students tons of homework to prepare for it. They give students tons of exercises and ways that they can do well on that exam for 2 years. And it's extraordinarily common to talk to college students and ask them about their Gaokao and how much they prepare for it. They get up at 5:30 or 6 every day and they study until they go to school at 8. And then they stay at school from 8 until about 5 or 6. Some people stay until 9 p.m. and they study all day long. And then they come home and then they study until about 11 or 12. And then they get up the next day at 6. And they do that every day of the week for 2 years. Now, some students, they'll get, a day off a week or something just for their sanity. And when they're not studying, they get put into extra classes and things like that because the competition is so fierce. They need to stand out. They need to be unique. They have to get the best grades, and they also have to learn piano or violin, or they have to do this, this, and this in order to distinguish themselves from the millions and millions of other people who are doing the same thing that they are. And that's just not a situation that you see anywhere else in the world. I mean, you see it maybe in a couple of other Asian countries, but as far as I know, hours like that and schedules like that only exist in China. If I'm wrong, please tell me that I'm wrong. I'd love to know. Just learn more about the world, When it comes time for exams, students will study pretty hard, and a lot of cheating ensues. It ensues during the Gaokao. It ensues during university time. I've caught students a lot of students cheating on exams in my classes, and of course cheating on homework and this kind of thing, because they just want good grades. That's all that they want. That's all that they need. And they don't care how they get them. They just don't care. As long as they get the good grades, that's enough. And it's not just education that we see competition manifest itself. We see it a lot in, for example, driving. Driving in China is ridiculous. It's insane because these tiny little narrow roads are built and they are packed full with tens of thousands of cars every day. Far too many. They're far past capacity. And people drive very much in a everyone for himself attitude. Every man for himself, and or woman. That manifests itself in many, many aspects of life in China, because everyone's trying to get to the same place, or everyone's trying to get to the place they want to go. So screw everyone else, I'm going first. So people weave in and out of traffic, people cut each other off, people are doing things that would cause most Western countries people to their blood just to boil, because of the way that things are done here as far as like driving goes. So it manifests itself in education, it manifests itself in driving, it manifests itself in the way that people line up for things. People don't line up here, they don't queue. They all mob the cash register wherever that they go. They don't stand one by one by one. They all just like gather around and they put money into the clerk's hand and say, okay, take mine. And they actually put money in their hand, because if they've got your money or they've got your ticket, then you have to be next. So people don't line up here because it's competition. There's so many people lining up and the shop's going to close in 20 minutes. I got to get my stuff because I don't want to have to wait another day or whatever to get it. And it's restaurants, and it's in I've seen it in shopping malls, I've seen it hospitals, and for government services, buses, subways, trains, just any kind of transportation. Yeah, it's everywhere. And that's just driven by competition. Everyone's got to get their thing. So in China, it is every man for himself. Every man for himself. From the top to the bottom. Everyone's trying to get that promotion so that they will brown nose with the boss, or they will give gifts to their boss, or they're trying to get a good school for their child, so they pay the headmaster some money, and then corruption enters the mix. And so it's all driven by competition. Competition is something you absolutely have to come to grips with here. And I'm not going to talk about corruption. That's going to just be too sensitive of a topic. I could get in trouble for it. But competition drives life in China. It drives every aspect of life here. And it's something you got to know about. And it may seem cruel, it may seem heartless, it may seem inhumane, it may seem uncivilized or what have you, but you got to realize that is just the way that life is here. How do you distinguish yourself from a billion other people? How do you make yourself stand out here? Because in China, if you are not the best, you're no one. You fade into the background. You fade into the masses. If you do not excel, you are nothing. If you do not stand out, you don't matter. And that's just the way the life is here. And you can't judge China for that, because that's just the way it is. So yeah, that's just something that has to be dealt with once you arrive here. So I want everyone to just be aware of it once they come. And that's about it. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed this episode of This is China. And I promise to get back on the wagon and start making videos every single week all about China. I will be going to the USA very, very soon to get married and all of that, but the videos will keep coming. So yes, fantastic. Goodbye. I will see you all next time. If you all like this video series, you can actually check out a podcast that I have with a friend of mine, Ian. It's called TIC, This is China. This is China Podcast. And we talk about all kinds of things like the ABCs of China, and there are a couple of mini-series about different aspects of life in China. So feel free to go to the Facebook page or follow it on iTunes or SoundCloud, whatever. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, check out the podcast, please. Cool. See you all next time.